Mr. President, I rise today to speak on the nomination of Judge Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court of the United States. One of the great privileges we have in the United States Senate is that responsibility of confirming nominees that a president puts forward for this awesome lifetime responsibility in the U.S. Supreme Court. Likewise, nominating justices to the Supreme Court is one of the most important responsibilities the Constitution bestows upon the President of the United States. President Trump knows this, obviously, and has clearly taken this charge very seriously. Last year, President Trump made an outstanding choice in nominating Judge Neil Gorsuch to the United States Supreme Court. I remember the debate on this floor, but I'm delighted with his performance since he's been in the United States Supreme Court. President Trump has again put forward an impressive nominee in Judge Brett Kavanaugh for this awesome responsibility in the U.S. Supreme Court. A former clerk for Justice Anthony Kennedy, Judge Kavanaugh is an accomplished, experienced jurist with over 300 published opinions. More than 50 circuit court opinions cite one of his concurrences or dissents, and the Supreme Court has actually endorsed his opinions more than a dozen times. Judge Kavanaugh has dedicated his life to public service, serving in various roles in the executive branch under President George W. Bush, and for the last 12 years on the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in the D.C. Circuit. Throughout his years of service, Judge Kavanaugh has also had a very positive impact on those around him. Just last week, one of Judge Kavanaugh's earliest clerks was sworn in to serve on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit for the United States. That judge is Judge Britt Grant, a native Georgian. Judge Grant clerked for Judge Kavanaugh and served on Georgia's Supreme Court and was elected to a full term without opposition and is now a justice on the U.S. Court of Appeals. Judge Kavanaugh introduced her when she was sworn in to the Georgia Supreme Court, and he swore her in to the Courts of Appeal last week. That both Judge Grant and Judge Kavanaugh are where they are today is a testament to their years of service and work upholding the U.S. Constitution. Even with Judge Kavanaugh's outstanding qualifications that transcend party lines, some of my colleagues across the aisle are already hysterically opposing him. In fact, some of my colleagues promised to vote against the nominee before Judge Kavanaugh had even officially been nominated. That kind of blind partisanship is exactly what the American people find unacceptable about Washington, one of the many things. Judge Kavanaugh is an independent, well-qualified nominee to the United States Supreme Court. He'll defend and uphold the United States Constitution. His own remarks following his nomination, by the way, at the White House when the president announced that Judge Kavanaugh would be his nominee, I was really moved by Judge Kavanaugh's comments that night. He first spoke about his mom and how she later in life had become a lawyer. He talked about his father. He talked about his two children. And only at the very end did he say these brief words. He made this comment in the East Room of the White House the night that President Donald Trump had nominated him and made it public that he was a nominee for the U.S. Supreme Court. This is Judge Kavanaugh's quote, and I quote, "I revere the Constitution. I believe that an independent judiciary is the crown jewel of our constitutional republic. If confirmed by the Senate, I will keep an open mind in every case, and I will always strive to preserve the Constitution of the United States and the American rule of law," unquote. I don't know how you can be more clear than that, Mr. President. In 2006, during his confirmation hearings for the D.C. Circuit, he again faced unmerited accusations, much as he is today. Judge Kavanaugh at that time simply responded, and I quote, "There is one kind of judge, an independent judge under our Constitution," unquote. I think it's very clear where this man's mind is, and that is to protect and uphold the Constitution of the United States. Those quotes show that this man is very serious, and he needs to be strongly considered as the next justice of the United States Supreme Court. In my opinion, Mr. President, there can be no higher responsibility in this body than to be very diligent in our due diligence of nominating and confirming a justice to the United States Supreme Court. Having done that, I give this man my fullest, unreserved recommendation, and I encourage our colleagues in this body to also vote positively in his confirmation.